All right, I've got 3 o'clock. We're going to get started. It is Wednesday, July 26, 2023. It's 3 p.m. and this is the July meeting of the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District Board. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the order, please.
Barnes.
Here.
Chaplin. Here. Delgado. Fasella.
Present.
Hannon.
Here.
Nudo. Dial.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. Our first item will be approval of our agenda for today's meeting. I'll ask for a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve our agenda for today's meeting. All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Any audience participation? George, anything you want to? All right. Moving on to the approval of the board meeting minutes from our open session of July 28th, 2023. Motion and a second after you review.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the board meeting open session minutes from July 28th, 2023. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Communications. Carl, Beth, anything? Board, anything you want to share? All right, we're going to jump right into the managing director's report.
All right, thank you. I think we'll be able to make this a real quick one today. So we are discussing June statistics, and in June of 2023, we had 336,835 rides. June is always our lowest month of the year because the university ridership is at its lowest. But that is still up from where we were in June of 2022. It just seems like monthly I keep getting an error in here. It says June of 2023, but it should have been June FY 2023. Anyway, so the ridership is climbing back. The year-to-date ridership for the year ending of FY 2023 was 7.3 million. 7.9 million, and it was 7.3 million last year. So you can see on the next chart after the year-to-date ridership that there you go, you can see 2019 pre-pandemic and our stair-step back to recovery has been continual. I think we ended the year up in our sweet spot where we had about as many riders as we could contain with the level of service that we have on the street because we are still operating in reduced service. We have high hopes that our employment numbers are improving to the point. Our employment numbers have been improving, and so we think that by the time fall rolls around and we start back up with campus service, that we'll be able to sprinkle some additional service back in, and then maybe as the semester progresses, we can maybe get back to a full service level. Okay, moving on to revenue. Our monthly revenue looks really strange. Our revenue is healthy for the year. We'll get to in a moment, but this looks this way because June is the month that we look back on the service level that we provided under the U of I service agreement, and we have a level that they pay for. And then we have been unable to meet that obligation over the last year because of the aforementioned labor shortage. And so we give the university a credit back for the payments that they made but payments for service that we were unable to provide, so they get paid back that. So that happens in June in one lump sum, and that's why it looks like that. And then the year-to-date revenue, this looks better because it actually shows revenue. And this year we were at 8.6 million versus 7.9 million, which is an 8.2% increase over last year. Yes?
That is got the university return money discounted from.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And the operating expenses, just FYI, Bruce, we also made a credit back last year. So on that, on the year-to-date operating revenue chart, can we go back to that, Tech? Yeah, there. So both of those numbers for both of those fiscal years take into account the credit back to the university. So that's actual revenue. Okay. The operating expenses, the June operating expenses were 5.5% above June of 2022, and the year-to-date operating expenses for FY 2023 were 7% above FY 2022. The year-to-date revenue and expenses compared to budget, the year-to-date operating revenues were $36,000 below budget. And that is because we, I know you know this, but just to say it out loud, when we budget, we're budgeting for 100% of our service level, and we didn't do that, and so we made a credit back to the university. And so even with that almost $1 million payment that we made back to the university, we still only were $36,000 below budget. So we did really well with the revenue. I just wish we could get back to our full service. The operating expenses were $7 million below budget, and again, that's because we didn't have full employment, we didn't have full service, and so we weren't hitting our budgeted numbers. Let's see. With that, I think we've already gone over all the separate notes, and hopefully you've read those. With that, I will take any questions through page 36.
Anything for Carl on his report? Go ahead, Bruce.
When do you think we'll, at the current rate of growth of new employment, do you think we will get back to the old levels or the desired levels?
Well, it's hard to say definitively. We are making really good strides. Our HR department and safety and training department are really doing great work in hiring and then training people. But so we have good people coming in and a good number of people coming in, but we always lose people too. So not everybody in training makes it to the end of training, and we have retirements. We just had a long time operator, Teresa Desmond, who retired, and you know, so things happen, and so we're kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. I know none of that answers your question. So all that to say, I don't know, but I am hopeful that we'll be able to get back to having enough employees that we can deploy 100% of our service level this fiscal year, this service year, when we go back into full service with the university. So I think we've been at 80%. I think at the beginning of the semester, Jay, yell out if I'm misspeaking, but I think we're going to be putting in some extra pieces of work, and so I haven't heard the number yet, but you know, just theoretically, if we're at 85% level at the beginning of the semester, and we are putting more service on the street as the semester progresses, you know, it will be incremental. I don't think it'll just be we snap our fingers and we go to 100% service level.
Before this time next year?
I believe that we will be back to 100% before a year passes. Hopefully HR and operations and safety and training aren't all cringing behind me. You can see their faces. You can tell me if they're cringing. But
they're all grinning.
Oh, good. Good.
And Senator was here.
Yes, last week Senator Durbin was here. He held a press conference, a well-attended press conference, announcing the Low and No Emission Grant Program Award that we received, that he supported, and Congresswoman Budzinski supported, and Senator Duckworth supported as well. And so it was a great team effort. Ashley put the grant proposal together, and we were awarded $6.6 million for 10 hybrid buses.
Was the Congresswoman here?
The Congresswoman was not here, but she had staff members that attended for her because she had a competing event to get to.
Priorities.
Well, they divided and conquered.
Urban can make it, she can make it.
Go ahead, Phil.
You know, the first time I looked through this online, I thought for a second you'd stuck Dick Durbin's face on the side of that bus. He's just posed perfectly in that picture. I was curious, on page 32, we've got a kind of a round number $250,000 payment to David McGuire, who I think is ServPro. I was just curious what that was.
ServPro is the entity that's doing all the work post the fire, the District 116 fire.
That would make pretty good sense.
So yeah, that's been a big job, and they've been working hard at it. School district is partially back in the building, but that's in Pod C, and they're still working on Pod B. And our folks are not in Pod B also, so hopefully in the relatively near future, we'll be able to get everybody back in.
Did we end up getting insurance coverage for any of that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Additional questions for Carl on his report? You mentioned the university many times in your report, and I neglected to mention that Maria McMullen is here from the university from Campus Parking. Is that correct, Maria? She's our new campus advisory board member, so thank you for being here. We appreciate it. All right, our next item will be our first action item, and that is the semi-annual review of the closed session minutes. How much of this do we really want to read here? The Open Meetings Act requires that minutes of closed sessions be reviewed periodically to determine if the need for confidentiality still exists. There are 3 recommended actions. That the minutes of the closed session on Schedule 1, or I'm sorry, let me reword that. Our suggested action today is that the minutes from closed session meetings listed in Schedule 1 be released. They no longer require confidential treatment in order to be released. That the need for confidentiality still exists as the minutes for closed sessions in Schedule 2 remain confidential, and that the verbatim recordings listed for the closed session minutes in Schedule 3, all which are not less than 18 months old and the written minutes have been approved, are authorized to be destroyed. So that list is in your packet. So the requested, we're going to release Schedule 1, remain confidential with Schedule 2, and destroy Schedule 3. So my motion is going to be that the Board of Trustees hereby determines that the minutes of the closed session meetings of the board listed in Schedule 1 marked release are no longer required to be confidential and are ordered to be released. That the need for confidentiality still exists as to the minutes of the closed session meetings of the board listed in Schedule 2 marked remain confidential, and that the verbatim recordings of the following listed closed session minutes, Schedule 3, all of which are not less than 18 months old, and the written minutes of which have been approved are authorized to be destroyed. That is my motion. I'll ask for a second.
We normally pass those around and look at them before we do this?
We've already done that.
Today, or?
No, but I mean, we've already seen them and we've already approved them once. We don't need to approve them again.
All right, I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm sorry that took so long, but it's confusing to read. Our next item is the disaster recovery site hardware package. Ryan.
Just as a side note, Phil, I always have those minutes that you can always review. I have them at my office, so, and I have them here, actually, so.
Good afternoon. I'm Ryan Blackman, the Technology Services Director at MTD. We are asking the board to authorize the Managing Director to issue a purchase order to Insight Technologies for $46,499.80 and to Connection Public Sector Solutions for $190,793.87. This purchase order is for, or these two purchase orders are for hardware to build a disaster recovery site for our IT infrastructure. So what disaster recovery is in short is a kind of second set of hardware that we can use in the event that there is a large-scale disaster at our main tech facility. So Phil and Carl were discussing the fire that we had at 1101 a few months ago. You know, it's not too hard to imagine that that fire could have spread into the part of the building that houses our IT equipment. In that circumstance, you know, if our server room were to burn down or to be struck by a tornado or any number of disasters that could happen, we need a place to be able to recover those systems to, in order to be able to provide all of the technology that supports the daily running of the district. So the bus communications, dispatching, payroll, all of the kind of core functionalities that are required to operate the district day to day.
It's an isolated backup.
Yeah, it's physically distinct in a totally separate site that we could bring up in a matter of hours as opposed to a matter of weeks or months if we had to order new equipment and kind of start from the ground up from scratch. So this equipment is very similar. It's intentionally similar to the equipment that we purchased last year, the server cluster that we purchased last year. It's effectively the exact same configuration, so that we wouldn't have any question of, you know, can this equipment handle our load? Can it run everything that we need it to run? It's running on the exact same equipment, just in a different place.
Go ahead, Phil.
You'll have to forgive me, I haven't been in IT in almost 15 years. But I do think that the idea of having a off-site mirror, I'm assuming you'll put this at IT, or where are you thinking?
That's, in the short term, it will go at 803, our maintenance facility.
That's a good idea.
Not as far away as I would like it, so we're exploring some other options. Long term, there's nowhere to put it here at IT.
Not right now, but we might be adding on in the near future.
Right. So we've been discussing if we build the Illinois terminal expansion, building a server room as part of that expansion, that we could put the disaster recovery site in to give us some more geographic distance. I've also been exploring some other options of co-location and housing it in data centers that are a little bit further away, but we're not ready to move on that yet.
So I think this is a good idea. I guess my concern, I've had some experience with other organizations I'm involved with ransomware problems. So having a hot spare online, that's great for if a tornado hits. Do we currently have a tape backup system or anything in place where we have something that's offline, you know, and not accessible?
We do not use tape backups, but we've put a lot of thought and effort into doing what we can to protect ourselves from ransomware. The board authorized last year for us to buy a new backup system, and one of my main motivations for pushing for that system was that it gave us much, much better protection against ransomware. So just quickly to explain, in case someone doesn't know what ransomware is, it's a form of cyber attack where an attacker encrypts your data so that you can't use it, and then holds it for ransom, essentially, and says, you know, pay me this many Bitcoin or else you won't get your data back.
And we've had victims as large as when Comcast went down 2 years ago. I mean, so they're able to hit people that are far more sophisticated than we are, and essentially the solution I've come to is the only thing that is possibly able to avoid this happening would be an offline backup, where your backup is physically in a box and somebody can't just load it and delete it. I had a client in town, they had 5 different servers in 5 locations that were running blades mirroring, and they were able to get into all of them and wipe all of them because they were all online. So they've had to switch to a tape system where something is physically on a tape across the room and not connected to the internet, where you can't get admin credentials and go into it and do the same thing to it.
So there's a few things this new backup system does to protect against ransomware. It uses a immutable file system. So once data is written, there's a lock period where even, I have an administrative account to the backups, and even I cannot change that data. I can't delete that data. I cannot modify that data, even if I wanted to. It's built into the file system that data is immutable. That's kind of our primary backup. We also upload the backup to Cohesity, our backup provider, has a product that they call Fort Knox, and it's a cloud-stored copy of the backups. And they call it a virtual air gap. So a tape backup is an air-gapped solution. It's offline. There's no networked connection that an attacker could use to get to that backup. The virtual air-gapped solution that Fort Knox provides, it disconnects the network from that storage that's in the cloud for 23 hours a day. And it comes online just long enough for us to upload the new backups for each night, and then goes back offline. And there are other protections built into that to prevent unauthorized access. So if my account got compromised, or one of our other administrators' accounts got compromised, you can't do anything in that system without two people signing off on it. So, it's like the turning the two keys to launch the missile. You can't, if you compromise one account, it doesn't do you any good. So there's more to it than that. I'd be happy to unpack it further, but those are kind of the two cornerstones of what we've done to protect against ransomware as far as backup goes. Just to be clear.
And I would just add a comment. I would pit the sophistication of our tech services department against Comcast's tech services any day.
Offense met there.
A little puffery there.
None taken. I do want to be clear that the disaster recovery is not to protect against ransomware. It's to protect against physical disasters such as a fire or a tornado that would affect our data center.
Margaret.
Yes, well, I was going to say that I can understand why you're locating it at 803 right away, but I would encourage you to move quickly to put it far away. A tornado that hits 1101 is also very likely to hit 803, since they're so close together. Find someplace on the other side of town or in another town, or, as quickly as you can.
Yeah, that also gives me some discomfort, the proximity of the two, and that's something I'm actively working on and exploring a couple of different options. So the answer today is that it's going to go at 803, but that answer I'm hoping will change.
This includes a backup of the entire history of the MTD.
This includes, so we take, this is not primarily a backup system. It's a redundant system. But we do take backups every day of all of our data, and we store those backups very long term. So we store them for years and years and years.
Yeah, and all that's in this separate backup.
The long-term retention is actually stored in the cloud.
It's not. I couldn't hear you.
The long-term storage, the years-long storage is actually stored in the cloud. This disaster recovery site is mainly concerned with getting the system back to its previously running state right before the disaster struck.
But that might include the history of the MTD.
Yes. So
status.
in the event that we had, for instance, a fire, we would not lose any of that history. That's protected. There's multiple copies of that, some of which are in the cloud.
Additional questions for Ryan on this item? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion and a second to approve the disaster recovery site hardware purchase.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the disaster recovery site purchase, hardware purchase. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. So Maria, this was a kind of a short meeting today. You're lucky or unlucky, I'm not sure which one, but we will be meeting again on Wednesday, August 30th, 2023 at 3 o'clock right here at the Illinois Terminal. Anything else today? Maria, you want to tell us anything about yourself? How'd you get stuck with this? Oh, did I say that out loud? Sorry.
So I actually started at the parking department in 2016. And I came in at a time when there was a lot of turnover, some retirements. So I moved up to the customer service supervisor about a year into being there. And then I was promoted to assistant director in 2020. And then Marty Pollins, who all of you should know, he retired at the end of April. And so that's when I started this new role as interim director. So, yeah.
Well, thanks again for being here. We do appreciate it. So
thank you for having me.
And we appreciate the university and everything they do for us. So with that, I'll ask for a motion and a second to adjourn. So moved. Is everybody in agreement? Yes. Let's go. Thanks.